Welcome to preparing for the SAT evidence-based reading and writing section. Today we are going to be exploring words in context questions on the reading section of the SAT. In order to understand what this question is testing us on, we really need to understand the meaning of words and phrases and how we approach understanding that meaning when we don't know what the word means ourselves. So vocabulary and context questions play an important role in the SAT. These questions require you to determine a word's meaning by using context, or the words and sentences surrounding a word. Remember that vocabulary and context questions aren't asking you to choose the most common dictionary definition of a word, but rather the definition of the word according to how it is used in the passage. And so when we're answering this type of question, even if we don't know what that word means, or maybe we do know what the word means, we really need to be looking for clues and context around the word to determine how it's being used. Often the answer choices will include definitions that are correct according to the dictionary, but which are not how the word is being used in the passage. The types of words you can expect to be tested over are not obscure or out of date. They are words you will see in passages on different subjects and which you will use in college or in the workplace. Some questions will ask you to choose the best definition of a phrase from a passage. There's several different ways to use context to figure out a word's meaning. One of the ways is to check the surrounding words and sentences for suggested meanings. Notice how the underlined words provide a clue to the meaning of the word deleterious. So let's take a look at this example. Climate change has several deleterious consequences, including the damaging onslaught of severe weather events. Notice that the underlined words consequences, damaging, and severe all give us a pretty negative connotation. So we can infer that deleterious probably means something similar to like damaging or negative implication. So look for examples that suggest the word's meaning. Words that signal the presence of examples include, for instance, such as, for example, and like. Sometimes in the actual sentence, it's going to tell you an example of that type of word. Ty is an assiduous note taker. Throughout the class, I can hear him typing the teacher's words into his laptop. So notice the example given indicates that Ty is constantly taking notes, so we can infer that assiduous means persistent or diligent. Because he is constantly taking those notes, so he's persistent note taker. You can also look for nearby synonyms. Synonyms are words that mean the same thing. So writers regularly use synonyms to explain new or complex terms. Phrases that signal a synonym is nearby include called, known, as, in other words, and that is. Our neighbors celebrate Diwali, also known as the Indian Festival of Light. Notice the also known indicates that this is spelling out what Diwali is. It's a festival of lights. In addition to looking for synonyms, sometimes it's helpful to look for nearby antonyms depending on the context of the sentence or the paragraph. So for example, Janet is so humble and friendly that John was shocked when someone referred to her as condescending. So notice she's so humble and friendly. John is shocked that when someone calls her this, so it has to be the opposite of humble and friendly. Therefore, it probably means like superior or acting the opposite of friendly. Consider common prefixes, roots, and suffixes. English draws upon a large number of Greek and Latin words. A basic understanding of common prefixes, root words, and suffixes can help you discern the meaning of an unfamiliar word. So if we break down the word, often we can find root words within that we do know, or we can find a prefix that we're familiar with, and it gives us clues as to what that word means. So for example, apathy, it has the prefix a. And so apathy is going to be like without empathy. It's going to be the opposite of having an empathetic view. Atheist, again, it has that prefix a. We know it's without God, so not believing in a God. The prefix means not or opposite, so if we have distrust, it's going to be the opposite of trust. Some of the other root words or Latin words that we can rely on are auto meaning self, and so micro, small, mono, one, so monotonous, monologue. Monologue is a speech given by one person. So let's take a look at some of the examples. One of the only primate examples of monogamy, Laura gibbons, have long been documented living in close-knit families. The coupled male and female will spend time grooming each other and literally hanging out together in the trees. There's a lot of context in this sentence that lets us know what monogamy means. If they are an example of monogamy, we notice the male and female are coupled, so they're kind of together. We also notice that they're living in a close-knit family, so we can infer that monogamy means having a relationship with one mate. You can also generate your own synonyms. So think of your own simple synonym for the word in question. Choose an answer choice that is closest to your synonym. Scientists now realize that the brain is very plastic. The neurons adapt and change as circumstances change. Now we know that plastic is like a type of material. However, in this sense, it's not being referenced as the common definition that we know. So if the brain is plastic and now it's explaining that the neurons adapt and change, we can infer that plastic means adaptable. So in our answer choices, if we have answer choices like creative, artificial, malleable, and sculptural, we're going to want to choose the one that means most adaptable, most able to being changed, and that's malleable. We're now going to take a look at a couple of underlined words in passages, and we're going to use the steps that we just went over, the identifying context within the passage that helps us determine positive or negative connotation, finding synonyms in the passage that help us determine what this word might mean, or looking for antonyms if the word indicates that it means the opposite of the context of the passage. So let's take a look at this one. Researchers at the Robert Wood Johnson Clinical Scholars Program at Yale University found that the more closely knit people reported their neighborhood to be, the less exposure to violence they had. By collecting data from roughly 150 New Haven residents through community-based surveys conducted in 2014, the study authors concluded that strong social ties may help reduce gun violence and produce more resilient neighborhoods. So in the context, resilient suggests that the neighbors are, and we have two option choices here, strong and flexible. The first thing I'm noticing in the context is that by collecting data from roughly 150 New Haven residents through community-based surveys, the study authors concluded that strong social ties may help reduce gun violence and these strong social ties may produce more resilient neighborhoods. And what's standing out to me here is strong. And so I think strong is going to be the best answer. Producing a more flexible neighborhood doesn't quite make sense in the context of the passage. This is talking about close-knit communities and how these close-knit communities had less exposure to violence. And so the best answer choice here is strong. Okay, we're now going to take a look at another one. Just some quick tips. Some questions will test your understanding of multiple meaning words. The answer choices may include several definitions of the word in question, which are accurate according to the dictionary definition of the word. However, make sure the meaning fits the one used in the context of the passage. So again, we always want to choose what is not only the right dictionary definition, but the right connotation for the passage. So let's take a look at this one. Although the study was specific to a single city in Connecticut with historically high crime rates, it illustrates the importance of social cohesion or a community's willingness to cooperate in order to prosper. Notice here, this is not underlined, but I just want to point this out. Social cohesion, they are telling you what social cohesion is with this a positive phrase, or a community's willingness to cooperate in order to prosper. That is what social cohesion is. So that's a good just place to point out. Sometimes they're telling you what that word or that phrase means in the passage. The concept may sound mawkish in theory, but it has far-reaching empirical benefits. And these matter at a time when the national conversation about gun violence has seen renewed fervor. In line 4, mawkish most nearly means overly sentimental or having a sickly flavor. Based off the context of this passage, and I want to point out too, the concept may sound mawkish in theory, so we're talking about a concept, and a concept being mawkish, but it has far-reaching empirical benefits. Empirical is concerned with observations or experience rather than pure logic. And so we can see here that this is kind of relating to the concept may sound mawkish, however, it does have these benefits, these empirical, like scientific benefits. And so the one that's standing out as fitting the context of the passage is over sentimental. And if we plug that in, the concept may sound overly sentimental in theory, but it has far-reaching benefits. Having a sickly flavor, both of these are actually the correct dictionary definition of mawkish, but having a sickly flavor really doesn't fit with the tone of the passage, the formal tone, nor does it fit with the context, which again, the context is talking about the study that they're doing to reflect the high crime rates and how having a more, let's go back to this one, having a more close-knit group or community will kind of combat those crime rates. So this is really not the best answer. So A, again, is our best answer. Let's take a look at one more. So in Bowling Alone, the sociologist Robert Putnam argued that even affluent areas have seen decreased social interactions in recent decades. Putnam found that Americans had joined fewer civic organizations, socialized with friends less frequently, and signed fewer petitions. The title of the book came from the fact that while Americans had bowled more in the preceding 20 years than even before, fewer of them did so in leagues. Instead, they bowled alone. Putnam concluded that the United States was bleeding social capital and therefore democratic values. So this whole piece is about the decline in social interaction. And he kind of references like the bowling, like more people were bowling in leagues in the past. Now they're bowling, more people than ever are bowling, but they're bowling by themselves. And he concludes that the United States was bleeding social capital. The word bleeding stands out to me because it's being used as like a verb here, and it's pretty negative. The United States is bleeding social capital. So really what he's referring to is bleeding that social interaction. So let's take a look at our answer choices. In context, which is the best definition of social capital in lines 7 through 8? A, political events with like-minded people, or B, valuable relationships with other people. The part that stands out to me that makes this wrong is political events. They're not talking about political events. They're talking about relationships and that social interaction that we annotated earlier. So A is not right, and B is our best answer. Yep, so that wraps up our Module 5, Words in Context. Later you are going to practice reading passages and identifying words in context, again using those same steps. Remembering to check the context of the passage, determine not only like dictionary definitions when you can, but also the connotations that the passage is emitting. So is it positive, is it negative? Are there synonyms within this passage that we can find, or antonyms?